Okay, today we're going to look at something really tough. A school roof collapse in India. Just awful. Took young lives. Happened, suddenly, middle of a school morning, assembly time. Turns a normal day into, well, a nightmare. So our mission here in this deep dive is to really get into the reports about this, what exactly happened, what factors were involved, and maybe what bigger issues does this whole thing point to? We'll pull out the key details, the insights from the sources we've looked at to give you a clearer picture.
Right, and we'll go beyond just the immediate facts, won't we? We want to look at why, the contributing factors, the larger implications. The idea is to connect the dots for you, to help understand the vulnerability, the systemic problems that events like this often, sadly, bring to light.
Okay, so let's start with the core facts then. What do we know? It happened Friday morning, July 25th, 2025, around 8:00 a.m. local time. The place was the government primary school in Piplodi village. That's in the Chalawar district of Rajasthan, Western India. And the event itself, just devastating. A part of the roof of this single-story school building came down, right as students were gathering for morning assembly.
Oh, terrible timing.
Yeah. And the human cost. It's heartbreaking. At least 7 children killed, 20 others injured.
And these were young kids.
Between 8 and 11 years old, the injured ones. And 2 were reported in critical condition.
Wow.
Sources say there were about maybe 60 children and teachers in the school at that moment.
That's a significant number of people potentially impacted. And what happened right after? The immediate response.
Well, this is quite striking, actually. The reports say local residents, people from the area, rushed straight to the scene.
Right, the community itself.
Exactly. They started rescuing students, pulling them out. Police and government workers joined in too, of course.
That immediate community reaction is something, isn't it? People just jumping in.
It really is. And news outlets apparently had video. Family members crying at the site. Just gives you a sense of the immediate shock and grief.
Yeah, that kind of spontaneous help, especially in maybe more rural areas, it often gets there before the official cavalry arrives, so to speak.
Right. It shows incredible bravery, but maybe also points to, well, how quickly things need to happen in a disaster.
Exactly. It speaks volumes about community, but maybe also about response time sometimes.
So we know what happened. The big question then is why? What are the sources telling us about potential causes?
Well, this is where it gets a bit complex. There seem to be conflicting points about the building itself.
Okay.
Some early reports suggested the school building was, quote, run down, not in great shape. But then Ajay Singh, he's a Jhalawar district official, he stated publicly that the building had not been flagged as unsafe after a recent survey.
Oh, so a direct contradiction there.
Pretty much, yeah. It immediately raises a flag, doesn't it? About how accurate or thorough these safety surveys really are, or what unsafe actually means in that context.
That is a significant disconnect between what some people saw and what the official check apparently found. Why might that happen?
Well, it could be a few things, couldn't it? Maybe the survey focused on major visible issues, missed something less obvious. Or perhaps resource constraints, limited time or personnel for really deep inspections. Or even the criteria themselves might not capture every risk, especially when you factor in other stressors.
And speaking of stressors, the weather, that seems like a huge factor here. India's monsoon season.
Absolutely crucial. The sources are very clear. The area had seen persistent, heavy rainfall over the past few weeks. This wasn't just one bad storm.
Weeks of it.
Yes, and this fits into a much wider picture of monsoon impact. We know storms had already killed, tragically, dozens of people from lightning strikes recently in eastern India.
Right.
And there's even this detail from aerial photos just days before July 19th, showing buildings partly underwater from floods in Pushkar, which is also in Rajasthan. So the region was already saturated, infrastructure under strain.
So the rain, the persistent rain, on potentially a building that might have had issues, it's a dangerous combination.
A very dangerous combination. And unfortunately, it's not an isolated type of event.
Right, you mentioned this isn't uncommon.
Sadly, no. Deadly building collapses during the monsoon season happen too often in India.
Why is that so prevalent?
The core issue, according to the sources, is weak construction often linked to insufficient enforcement of building safety codes.
Ah, the enforcement aspect.
Exactly. It's not always about having codes, but making sure they're followed, inspected rigorously. Resources, oversight.
Yeah.
It's complex.
So many buildings might just be inherently vulnerable.
Particularly vulnerable, yes,
Uh-huh.
especially to the kind of sustained deluge you get in a monsoon. It really exposes those underlying weaknesses. This specific tragedy points to that much bigger systemic problem.
That's a tough reality.
Yeah.
So, given all this, the tragedy, the potential causes, the wider context, how did the authorities react? Well, the Chelawar district official, Ajaz Singh, the same one who commented on the survey, he promised a detailed investigation.
Okay, an investigation.
Yes, and strict action against anyone found responsible.
Accountability, right.
And the Prime Minister, Narendra Modi, he called it tragic and deeply saddening. Sent thoughts and prayers, assured that authorities were providing all possible assistance. Standard but important responses.
Uh-huh. Any state-level reaction.
Yes, Rajasthan's State Education Minister, Madan Dilawar, announced something quite specific, that experts were being brought in to examine the stability of other buildings on that same school campus.
Ah, so looking beyond just the collapsed section, that's a necessary step, checking the rest of the site.
Seems like it.
These are, the expected and necessary first steps. Investigation, support, promises of action, checking related structures. But given what we just discussed about the widespread nature of building safety issues, especially during monsoons, the real challenge is much bigger, isn't it?
It sounds like it. Moving beyond one incident to address the root causes.
Exactly. Accountability for this specific event is vital. But the true test is whether this leads to real systemic changes in how building safety is managed and enforced across the board.
So wrapping this up then, we've taken this deep dive into a really heartbreaking event in India, the immediate tragedy, the factors like the monsoon, the questions around the building's condition.
Yeah, and the wider context, that vulnerability of infrastructure, the enforcement challenges.
What really stands out, I think, is how one awful event can just throw these deeper systemic issues into sharp relief.
It really does. It's not just that there are problems, but you see the specific points where things break down, like that potential gap between safety checks on paper and the reality on the ground.
That policy to practice gap you mentioned earlier.
Precisely, and how environmental factors like intense monsoons just massively amplify existing weaknesses.
So for you listening, this is a real snapshot, isn't it, of how the environment, human infrastructure, regulations, how they all intersect, sometimes with absolutely devastating consequences.
And it leaves us with a pretty big question to think about, doesn't it? Especially in a world facing more extreme weather.
Which is,
How do communities, especially those developing rapidly, strike that balance? The balance between building quickly, growing, and ensuring robust safety standards are actually met, especially to protect the most vulnerable people and places, like schools.
that's a tough balance to strike. Definitely something to mull over long after we finish here.